What is up, YouTube? It's your boy Random. I know what you're thinking here. What in the prime Reacts is this? You're a gaming channel, brother. Why are we talking about programming concepts and React? This is Random, actually. I am Random, and I don't believe in algorithms. Also, I didn't finish my Star Citizen video in time. So, yeah. Anyway, today I wanted to talk about React. And no, not the brain rot YouTube channels or a chemistry term. I'm talking about React.Js. This is probably the most hated, disliked, and misunderstood framework out there, at least from what I've seen and used in my, 6 months of programming? But I love it so far in my 6 months of programming, and I had to share why. So here's the opinion of a junior dev. Well, I've never even had a dev job, so maybe not even a junior.
Thank you.
But here's the opinion of a guy who uses Reacts and has thoughts. So what is React? First, let's start with the basics. Well, what even is React? Well, a simple Google search will tell you React.Js, also known as React or React.Js with just capital letters, is a declarative, efficient, and flexible JavaScript library for building user interfaces. It's maintained by Meta, shout out Facebook, and a community of individual developers and companies. Cool, pretty straightforward. But if you take that same exact question to Reddit, the tone changes. And fast. You'll see awful stuff like, the hate for React I read on Twitter, Reddit, and pretty much everywhere front end is discussed as crazy and toxic. It's
I'm
like
learning React is part of my job,
React
and
is
I
an
must
abomination.
actually use it
Also,
and line up about it. And I hate writing unit tests for using it on my company instead of data flows.
I basically agree. I think most of these frameworks only exist to further advance developers' careers and as a distinction method. No dev will want to work in a company where they don't use the latest fanciest technology because that diminishes his CV for the next one. Is he serious? Absolutely. Vanilla JS or pure TypeScript is more than enough for anything you need. Okay, buddy. Wrapping it several times over is nothing but stupid. It's nothing but a brand and the devs of being in the center of the cesspool telling all of you. Yeah, I get the point. So clearly there's a bit of a love-hate thing going on. On paper, React is the efficient UI tool backed by one of the biggest tech companies in the world. But in the wild, it's also one of the most controversial pieces of front-end ecosystem. I don't even know whose side to take, the billionaires or the self-taught programmer. Now, let me say something that will probably make 99% of you guys hate me if you already don't. And if you disagree, just shut up. I'm just playing. If you disagree, just please explain to me where my thinking is wrong. Okay, so bring up the whiteboard. React is used by Meta, right? Right? One of the biggest companies on earth, right? Right? Same page? Good. The same company that builds platforms with, if not billions, millions, and I mean multi-millions of users. Now, let me Google something real quick. How many users does Facebook have? 3 billion monthly active users. Okay. The same company that builds platforms with billions, with a B, of users, but their tool sucks. Really? So let me get this straight. Some of the smartest engineers on the planet built React to power one of the most complex, high traffic apps in all of history, but React is too complicated for your to-do list app. It works for rocket science level scale, but not your project that you copied from a random YouTuber who has no CS degree, barely explains and understands fundamentals. That logic doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't. If that's the hill people want to die on, fine. Just put that hill on another planet. But at least admit it's not the tool that's the problem. It's how people approach learning it. And we're going to get to the real issue of today, the skill issue. So now that we kind of know what React is, and I say kind of because React is a never-ending learning journey. You never really master it, you know what I mean? You just get good enough to understand what you're doing and use it. Well, let me guess. You came home from work or school one day, talked to a friend, or watched a YouTube video about a startup going from 1K to 100 million in 30 days, or you watched one of them cringy, untrue day in the life videos, and now you've decided, I want to become a programmer. Well, good for you, Timmy. Seriously, you found something you're excited to do. So you Google how to code, and you instantly feel overwhelmed. There's just too much information. But don't you worry, we live in the age of YouTube University and AI. You search for a React project tutorial because you've heard of Facebook, a FANG company uses it, and you want that FANG job. Nice office, a snack, a big salary. You follow the tutorial, you skip all HTML, CSS, and JavaScript because AI can do it, or Tailwind does everything for me. You finish the project and you feel accomplished. But the YouTuber kept on saying, React is complicated, React sucks. The comments say, React is complicated, React sucks. Twitter is saying, React is complicated, React sucks. Your grandma is saying, you get the point. And because you haven't built any opinions of your own, you adopt that mindset too. And also because you haven't built any projects of your own, but that's something else entirely. You hate React because it's too complicated? Compared to what? You don't know anything else. If you gave President Lincoln an iPhone, he'd probably say, what is this? This device is stupid and complicated and terrible, but it's brand new. Why? Because he's used to something simpler. That's exactly what's happening with React. New developers are just repeating what the older devs are saying, but the older devs have a reason to complain. They've been doing things one way for years. They have to unlearn habits, adapt to a new style, but you have nothing to unlearn. In fact, you just have to learn. You're starting from zero. You're an empty canvas. So just learn React. Stop listening to the noise. Build your own understanding and project. Why I love React. I love React because I can literally build a single button component and reuse it everywhere. What do I mean? Let me explain. Yesterday, I was coding my own project and something just like clicked. Like actually clicked. I was building a button component, and before, like I don't even know what I wasn't really using React. Like I just imported my whole homepage kind of and just built like my page in just plain CSS, you know, like a bot. I realized like I didn't really understand props too much or reusable components, but like I've evolved. I'm not gonna explain all into it, but think of a butterfly, a caterpillar. I've gone through my metamorphosis. I've died. I've been reborn. This is my final form. Okay, but here's the deal. Once you understand how components and props work, React just becomes this overpowered tool. You can write one button component, just one, you know, for your entire life, and then you can use it all over your app or other websites. Change the text, just pass a prop. Make it blue, pass a prop. Add a click function, pass a prop. Want to make $1 million? Pass a... And it doesn't stop there. You can reuse the same component across different projects. Wow. Now, yeah, some of these ideas overlaps with things like Tailwind UI or component libraries, but honestly, I'll never use them. I've never have. Why? Because I'm a real programmer. I write my own CSS by hand, okay? I'm just playing. But don't get it twisted. I do use AI a lot. You'd be foolish not to, I think. But the difference is how you use it. That has to be an entirely different video. This will just be something quick. Yeah, so there you go. A totally inexperienced, zero cred, never having a job, junior dev telling you why you're wrong about why you think React is bad. Before you repeat someone else's take, ask, do I actually find React complicated? Or am I just parroting? Be honest to yourself too. It's usually the latter. And go build something.